So one of my main businesses while I was incarcerated was called Huevo Ceviche. And you're probably wondering what the hell is Huevo Ceviche, right? Well, Huevo in Spanish is white boy, like light skinned. So I came up with the word Huevo. Ceviche is a traditional meal in Mexico, which is like a pico de gallo, like a salsa, and it has seafood in it. In Mazatlan, where my ex-wife was from, they're famous for ceviche, right? It's caught fresh that day and made fresh that day, and you eat it basically on the beach. So one day when I was in prison, I called my wife, my ex-wife, right? And I said, hey, I need you to come see me at the prison. I didn't want to tell her what it was for. So I said, I need you to come visit me. She's like, well, what's wrong? You know, I just come see me Saturday, right? So she drove 4 hours to come see me. She goes, what's wrong? Are you getting indicted again? Like, she's nervous. Like, I didn't want to tell her on the phone because I knew she'd say, oh, I'm not going to tell you that. Just, you know, I'm not going to waste my time for that. I said, hey, I need your recipe. She goes, what recipe? I said, I need your ceviche recipe from Mazatlan, where you're from. And she's like, you had me come all the way? I said, I think I found a business that would be profitable. She's like, okay, well, I'll tell you how to do it. So she's telling me you need onion, you need tomato, you need jalapeno, and you need cilantro, and you need a fish. Well, I knew I could get all these from the kitchen because I had a guy in the kitchen that would smuggle them out for me. And I was like, okay, what do you think the fish would be? She said, you need any type of fish. So I was like, well, we got mackerel, right? She's like, mackerel? I've never used mackerel. She says, but I suggest you clean it, right? So she says, take the mackerel and clean it. So let's put the price here. So one mackerel off the commissary cost me $1, right? That's for the mackerel. And then I knew that each of these cost me one stamp, which was 50, a stamp in prison was 50 cents. So I got my tomato at 50 cents. I have my onion at 50 cents. My jalapeno cost me $0.25. So the way I did this was they would give me a jalapeno and a cilantro for a stamp. For free. For a stamp, right? You should, right? So that would be 50 cents. So jalapeno, cilantro, 50 cents, which are all stamps. That's the value of stamps. So let's add it up. 50 cents, 50 cents, 50 cents, $1, right? So you got $2.50. Is my math right? $1. Yeah. Yep. So you got $2.50. And I know that this right here would make me 2 ceviches. And in prison, we had a peanut butter jar, right? This is your peanut butter jar, and this is how you make it. So what happens is we're in it, divided by 2, 250 divided by 2 is 125. So we know that we are in each jar of ceviche $1.25. So the trick was you take your mackerel, and she says you got to clean it good, you got to cook it in lemon juice. So you get the lemon juice off the commissary, and you put it in, and lemon juice, you just need a little. And you put it in this bag, right? And you just let it soak in the lemon juice for like 24 hours. And you take all these vegetables and you cut them up. So you're making it like a salsa. And you put it in a clean trash bag, and you have them all cut up so it looks like a pico de gallo, right? And while your lemon juice is cooking, your fish, 24 hours later, you take the fish and you put it in the salsa with it all chopped up, and you have your jars and you shake it up. And you take a little piece of plastic and you cover it, and you put it in your trash can where you have your ice. And you let it sit for another 24 hours. So it's a 48-hour process, right? So now you have a jar full of ceviche for $1.25. At the time, the flat book was going for $13.25.
What's a flat book?
So a flat book in prison, this is your currency. This is 20 stamps. It's from the United States Postals. So you can buy on the commissary. These stamps, they're forever stamps. So you use these to send your mail out to your loved ones, right? So in prison, this is worth $13.25 at the time, $13.25. So these are only worth $13.25 if they're in one piece. As soon as you take one piece off, it devalues them. Then all of a sudden, you're just buying these things with stamps. So you want to keep them as a flat book, because to me, this is what you want, right? This is your money. So what I did is I said to myself, okay, I'm going to charge $15, right? And $15 looks like this. So at the time, my flat book was $13.25. And depending where the macro would be, it's either between $1 and $1.75. So let's call it $1.75, right? So we'll say this is my flat.
What do people do with those flat books?
Well, you use them to mail stuff, right, or you can resell them. Okay. So let's just say we're in it. So this was how I got my $15. So I always ask for a flat book and a macro, right? That's how I wanted my payment, because I knew that was close to $15, and I wanted people to pay $15 for this. And people thought I was crazy, right? But I was providing a product that they couldn't get, because I had to have all these smuggled out of the kitchen. And I had a guy in the kitchen that was allowed to do that because he was the chef. He was the cook for all the correctional officers. So they let him walk out the kitchen with his waistband full of vegetables. And then I would cash him out when he got to the unit. And I pay for these vegetables in stamps. And those stamps are used to buy burritos, to gamble on the poker table, to bet on sports. It's a city within a city when you're in prison. But me, on the other hand, like most people take these flats, they're worth, like I said, $13.25. But as soon as you sell them, like if you said, hey, I need some flat books because we're in prison, you're willing to take a break, right? You're taking a discount. So you're taking $13.25 and you're going to say, hey, you know what? I'll sell this to you for $6. So $6. So look at, if you do the math, what's $13.25 minus 6? Well, we know $7.25. So you're losing $7.25. Who wants to lose $7.25? Not me. So what I did is, I know these are forever stamps, meaning they never lose their value, right? So every time I made one of these, I saved it.
Why do people get rid of them for $6 just to get quick money?
Because they want quick money. And the way they get the quick money is this $6 turns on to money on your books. So you can call like your loved ones and say, hey, I just bought 100 of these flat books for $6 each, which is $600. Can you put it on the inmate's books? So now the inmate has $600 put on his commissary, so he can use it to buy things, right? But me, I'm not going to take that kind of loss. That's a big loss, right? I'm working hard for my money. So what I did is I took my flat book, and every time I made one, I saved it. And then I used my mackerel, the $1.70, to reinvest in my product, right? So this right here is my profit. And later on, you'll realize what I did with this. I'll tell you about this because it goes hand in hand with this. So I started making these, right? Okay, I'm thinking to myself, what should I sell them for? 15 bucks. Okay, but I need to let people try it, right? No one's going to believe this is going to taste good. So who do I go to? I go to the people from Mexico, the people that know what ceviche is. And I give one ceviche and I split it up between 4 guys. I said, this one's on me, right? Try this. And I give them some tostada chips and they try it. They're like, holy shit, Owen, this is better than anything we've had from Mexico, right? Little do they know, my wife just gave me the recipe a week ago. I know the recipe. It's great, right? Everyone's tasting. They're like, oh my God, how do I buy it? I said, well, I'm doing pre-orders. I can make 10 of these a week. I said, I'm pre-ordering them right now. If you want them, I said, they're $15. I said, I need a flat book and a mackerel.
Do they get the mackerels? Do they get given a mackerel themselves?
So they have to give me this package right here.
And where do they get the mackerel from? Is that?
This is from commissary. Oh, so you can buy these for like $1.75, okay, right? That's where that value comes from. So they go to the commissary that day or the next day when they go shopping, and they bring me this.
And you're limited to how many of those you can get?
You're limited. You only get 7 a week.
Okay, right.
So I need these. Why do I need these? I need these because I need to put it in the product, right? So I need as many of these as I can. But my first week I did 10, right? So I did 10 ceviches. at $15. So what's 10 times 15?
150.
$150. And I know it cost me 125 times 10, which is
1250.
1250. So my profit
That's a good margin.
is 137.50, right? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's see.
And your gross margin on that is like.
So
That's-
in order to figure out your profit, you'd go, we know what our profit is, but let's see what the percentage is, right?
Yeah. Your gross margin.
So our gross margin would be, let's see. So we'll go $15 minus 125, right? Minus 1.25 is $13.75. So our selling price of $15 minus $1.25, which is our profit right here, right?
Yeah.
And then we take that profit and divide it by 125, right? This is to find the percentage. So we go 13.75 divided by 1.25, which equals $11. And then you multiply that by 100, right? And that's your percentage. That's your
margin,
percentage.
yeah.
It's 1,100% markup, right?
Yeah.
Because 125, 1,000% markup would be $1.25, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, that's not worth.
Maybe you should have gone into ceviche instead of ice creams.
Well, listen, this is the problem. This is why I started this business, and I was like, okay, this is great. I hope this goes forever, right?
Yeah.
Because this was a lot more profitable than ice creams for me. And I was thinking to myself, okay, how do I expand this, right? And then what happened was I started noticing that these things were hard to get out of the kitchen. So some days he would get caught with them. Some guards would be assholes and be like, no, throw them out. So I'd lose my product. And then I had to get creative. So what did I do in the drug business, right? I would send someone with 2 kilos of a product that I didn't care about, let's say marijuana, right? I'd send him through customs and he'd get stopped. But I wanted that to happen because they're going to stop him for the marijuana. And then right behind him is a guy coming with 50 kilos of cocaine, right? That's how the business works. So I had to think, how am I going to do this to trick the guards? So what I did is I had guys take the cilantro, which is the cheapest item, and they had it sticking out of their khakis, right? So they're walking, and the guard would go, hey, you, come here. And he'd have the cilantro, and then I'd have another guy right behind him strapped with a waist belt. And he'd have all the vegetables, and he'd get through. So I had to get creative, right? So in order to make this business work, I had to always have a fall guy. Just like in the drug business, we had fall guys that drove across the border with marijuana, get stopped, and we'd have the kilos of cocaine come after. So I had to get creative. But then I realized I couldn't get enough of these out, right? Because this is only making me 2 jars, and I'm only making 10 a week. It's like I can't expand the business because there's only a certain amount of vegetables they get every week.
That was your constraint.
So that's what stopped me. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? And then I got creative, like I said, and that's when I started the ice protein, which you tried. But you ask about the flats, why I didn't want to lose that money, right? Like, well, who wants to lose that money? You're losing over half your money. So I tell kids, like, you got to get creative. Like, why would you take a loss of $7.25? Maybe you could do something else instead of selling it for a loss. What could you do to make it so you're valuing it at $13.25 and you're getting all $13.25, right? And so guess what I did? I started thinking outside the box, and I said, you know what? I'm going to start saving these because they're forever stamps. They're never going to lose their value. And I said, I'm going to send them home, right? And people thought I was crazy in prison. Like, you're so cheap, man. You're sending your stamps home. But what they didn't know is I was writing this book called The California Kid, right? So they didn't know I was going to need to pay for shipping one day, right? And while I was in prison, right, I was thinking to myself, okay, everyone's telling me Jeff Bezos is a genius. He's figured out free shipping on Amazon, right? Free shipping. I said, fuck, how am I as a book owner or book writer, right? How am I ever going to pay for free shipping? There's no way. Like, I can't afford to ship a book that's costing me $29, and I know the shipping's $5 right now to ship a book. Jeff Bezos is not charging that. He's charging $29, and he's doing free shipping, right? How am I going to compete? Okay, so let's say I offer free shipping, right? Okay, $29, and I say free shipping. So now I just lost my $5, right?
Yeah.
I lost $5, but who cares? Because remember, I didn't lose the money in prison, and you got to remember my markup was 1,100%.
Yeah.
So I don't care if I lose $5. So now I'm thinking everyone's going to be like, okay, well, we have Amazon accounts. Why would we order books from this California kid when we already have an Amazon account, right? It's so much easier to go on Amazon and just click on the app. Okay, what can I do that Jeff Bezos can't do? Well, Jeff Bezos isn't Owen Hanson. Jeff Bezos isn't the author of this book. So why don't I do something better? Why don't I offer everybody that buys from the California kid, why don't I offer to my dear friend, thanks for the support, love, and then I sign it. Now I just did something Jeff Bezos can't because he can never be the California kid. So I'm going to offer a personal message and a signature to everyone that buys my book. And I'm going to match Jeff Bezos free shipping and cross it out. So now I just took my stamps that cost me, that were worth $13.25.
But you got for $6.
But look at all the money I saved by sending them home. So my dad would get all these stamps. I would send them every week. I'd send them like between 20 to 50 stamps, flat books, right? And then eventually I said, you know what, I'm gonna start bundling them up and sending 100 at a time, right? So I'm not, like, he's like, son, what are you up to? Are you getting into trouble in there? I said, no, Dad, you're gonna love this, right? So I'd send him like a Forbes magazine and I put them in there and I'd have 100 stamps, flat books, right? $1,300 worth of stamps in there. And I put it in there and I put it in the package and I'd send it out of the prison. My dad would get these magazines, right? And he's like, son, what are you up to in there? Like I said, Dad, don't worry, I got an idea. So when I got out, my dad kept all the stamps. So I think I have over 10,000 flat books. And I'm not gonna lie, every time someone orders a book, they get these put on the envelope and they get a book and with a personal message and my signature.
Do you picture those? Do people know that story? You get the book?
No, I tell them on the website, if you buy the book, you get a signature. But I haven't.
Do they know the story about the flat books? Because that's more interesting than the book.
That's right? Like, so that's why I wanted you to see this.
That's
and I told your wife about it too, but I wanted you to hear it from me. Because everybody that gets my book, it comes in a black package, so like a styrofoam package, like with a puffy envelope, and everything has the label printed out with the stamps from prison.
And they're actually the prison stamps that you're getting on the book.
Yeah. So
that's vision. To think that the day you're out, you need to be shipping your book.
When people told me about Jeff Bezos, I was like, okay, like how am I going to compete with this guy, right? And then I read his book in prison. I was like, man, this guy's a genius, right? Like that's what made me like think like, hey, how can I? But when you're making 1,100% markup, and I think I send 4. I think I could send 4 books with this. So when you're making 1,100% markup, I can ship 4 books. It doesn't matter me giving free shipping, right? As long as I have my stamps.
How many of these do you think you made or sold?
Oh, I sold probably 10 a week for about a year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then the guy got fired from the kitchen. You know, I'd make them like on a Thursday, and then by Friday they'd be ready, and then everybody wanted to party on like Fridays and Saturdays. Like that's when people buy their meals.
Right.
So like they're all prepaid. Like guys would pay me like 2 weeks in advance. So it was a good market.
Good for cash flow.
And it was
as
cool.
well.
It was like Wedo's feature. Like, hey Wedo, can I get a ceviche? Like it was good marketing, right?
And did that not? Because you said earlier about the Mexicans and the whiteys, and that didn't mix. Like, were you able to?
No. So
trade?
we're allowed to trade, right? If it's a business, we're allowed to do business, but we're not allowed to eat with you, right? So like if you're African American, I can't chop it up and eat with you. Now certain politics say you can eat. Like I can eat with the Hispanic, but in prison it's very like black and white. No, not allowed. Big no. But it's hard because, like I said, my best friends on the street are black and Mexican. So for me, that was the hardest part.
So could you interact with them anywhere else apart from me?
Just usually like on the yard, like if you're working out and you see them, you can say hello. If you're playing like handball, you're allowed to, but you're supposed to just stick with your race. And that was hard for me because, you know, I'm with one of my
And
best friends.
is that the sort of guys that are controlling the
Yeah, it's
gang?
the shot callers. So there's the Aryan brothers, the Mexican mafia, and then the Black Guerrilla family, right? And they say we're in prison. You guys aren't to do this. Because what happens is if you're black and I'm white and we get in a fight, next thing you know, there's going to be a riot on the yard. And nobody wants that. So everything's respected. You know, we go eat, we all sit with white guys. The blacks are over there, the Mexicans are over there. That's how it is. So for me, it was hard because my whole life I've been around diversity, right? So that was the toughest part for me. You know, I'd go walk the yard with my co-defendant who's black, and I'd be like, hey, try this ceviche, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you were not supposed to eat with him. I'd be like, here, just hurry up and give me a bite. And you take a bite, like, hey, did anyone see me? You know, like you're hiding. So, I mean, that's life though, right? What my dad says, if you don't like prison, son, then don't go, right? Don't get in trouble.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
That was amazing, man. Thanks again.